Well, good evening, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are in the world. You know, I always say, uh, because we have people from all over the world that join us. So today we have a very special guest. Come on in, let us know where you're tuning in from, and leave your comments. We have Dr. Valerie McCray, U.S. Senate candidate for Indiana. How are you, Dr. Valerie?
I am great, Dr. King. Last night when I met you, I was thinking, this is a special lady. Let me make sure I make this connect, and I'm glad I did. It's good to be here today.
Well, I am so honored to have you. It's ironic that we would meet on Women's History Month, and I have several friends who are either in politics or who have run for politics, um, and a couple of them unsuccessfully. But you know what? We have to keep pushing, because what if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it for us. Nobody's going to stand up for us. We have got to keep pushing. I was really disappointed that Stacey Abrams didn't get in, that's a powerful woman right there.
Absolutely,
And so,
absolutely.
it was heartbreaking. But we're going to get you in. We're going to get you over the finish line. So, as a psychologist, I'm going to read a little bit about your bio. I've witnessed how U.S. policies profoundly affect the mental well being of our people. I've worked directly with veterans struggling with PTSD, incarcerated individuals, and desperate need of support and rehabilitation, and youth struggling to overcome effects of violence. It's clear that mental health must be a nation priority, and we cannot address our nation's challenges one crisis at a time. That's why I'm running for U.S. Senate. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I can tell you exactly where I was when I decided to run for office. I was actually working in a prison, and I was thinking, how many times am I going to do this? I'd worked in a lot of prisons in Georgia. I worked in a lot of prisons all over Indiana in these small rural towns. And the dynamics in these prisons are such that you're seeing people away from their families in small towns, a lot of times mostly black inmates in these rural areas, mostly white areas. And the issues that they're having have more to do with poverty and violence and things that we could fix
Mhm.
at the legislative, in the federal government. If we made housing affordable, if we made wages make sense, if we did some things to make sure people had medical care and those things, we could do a lot to keep people from falling into these big ditches of mess called prisons.
Mhm.
Not only that, I work with veterans of war. So I do PTSD evaluations for Vietnam vets, Afghanistan, Iraq, the Gulf, Bosnia, even the ones who have been permanently damaged by just what they saw in Katrina, cleaning up what happened in Katrina. These things, it's like, we could fix some of this. We don't have to put our young people in every war situation. We just want to make sure that we're safe, that we're making decisions that make sense for everybody. We can't keep sacrificing generation after generation for the wealthy. We just can't keep doing that.
Absolutely. And, you know, um, one thing that we do a lot on mental illness, mental wellness, and because the majority of Black people are Christians and believe in God, we tend to not take care of our mental health because we believe, some of us believe, that you can pray it away, hope it away, speak tongues over it away. You know what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily now, the way God has it, a lot of pastors now have came to the realization that they can't do it either. They have to rely on mental health professionals to get the help they need for their congregation. So the conversation has been different. I've been listening to, I travel around and I go to different churches, of course, and especially on the campaign trail, just to to make sure people know I'm there, but also to replenish myself while I'm out here.
Mhm.
So I go to a lot of different churches, and we're hearing more and more pastors say, you can't pray this away, just like you said, you need to get professional help. And they're starting to open those conversations, which is making it a lot easier for everyone to make sure they get the help they need. One of the problems is that now that people are trying to get the help they need, there's not enough of us to go around.
Mhm.
And so people in the mental health field tend to be overtaxed, so to speak.
Mhm.
And my running for office has more to do with feeling like I couldn't be in enough places, helping enough people. So how can I go above all of that, make sure I get the foundations right, make sure policies are coming down the line that will help people in the long run? Because there's mental illness that I see on a day-to-day basis, but also what walks in the door is their poverty issues, their rent issues, their drug issues.
Mhm.
We also have medical issues. All these things walk in the door with that client.
Mhm.
And some of these things we could take off their shoulders if the wages were right, if they got enough health care, if they've got this going on, if their children were safe in schools,
Mhm.
if their children were getting the right education, if their children weren't being bullied. There's a lot of things that we could do legislative wise to make sure that we took some of this weight off of people that are already mentally stressed. So that was the goal of going from being a psychologist, which I will always be, to running for a major office such as Senate.
Wow, and let me just go into that. With 35 years in the psychology field, 25 licensed, I've witnessed how U.S. policies profoundly affect mental well-being of our people. And I'm just, I'm amazed at what you're saying because I spent 26 years in the largest electric and gas company in New Jersey. So I'm kind of comparing what I did to what you're doing because we had programs that were set up for inner city kids, but the inner city kids weren't coming to the programs. And the people who make the decisions believe that they know what's best when they really don't know because they haven't experienced those experiences that the inner city kids are. So, long story short, we had an amazing program, and the kids weren't coming. So the brilliant PhDs and whatever was like, oh, we can't understand why the kids aren't coming. And so I mean, I was on the diversity council. I said, well, do you want the truth? Half of these kids don't even know where their next meal is coming from.
Exactly.
Their parents are drug addicted. They don't care about your program. It doesn't matter because you got to go to the base of the problem. Am I right?
That's right. And making sure there's food there is helpful, making sure there's things for their parents. Anytime I've dealt with a child, you're not dealing with just the child, you're dealing with the school, sometimes you're dealing with the legal system, you're dealing with the social security system, you're dealing with all these systems that are coming together. It's not just one thing. Because these kids, some of them are hungry, some of them, their ADHD symptoms are just depression and anxiety because they don't know where their mom is. If somebody is on this drug or that drug, sometimes they disappear for 3 or 4 days on end. And these kids have to go to school not even knowing where their parents are.
Mm-hmm.
So they get these labels, undeservingly so. They get behind in school, and then one thing goes into the next, And just understanding that. I grew up in the hood, so to speak, in a public school, and I always, right next to our public school number 37 in Indianapolis, right next door to it was the juvenile detention center for the city. That little school that I went to never got any playground equipment, never got anything. Our gym consisted of the teachers moving their cars off the parking lot once a week so that we could play softball or something in the parking lot, but never any big equipment, never anything that we could see where our school was growing. Now, the juvenile detention center next door, where there's all the courts and the family courts, and then the kids, some of them are temporarily not incarcerated, but held there, detained there for days or months or whatever they're detained for. That particular facility grew and grew and grew and grew and grew until it started taking up whole blocks and whole. It almost took over School 37. As a matter of fact, now it did take over School 37 because it was taking over the parking lot. That school is no longer a school. It's half court, half community center. But the where we put our money, it was just interesting that we never put the money into the school, but we had to put all this money into the detention, the dysfunction.
Like it is now.
Like we're feeding the dysfunction instead of feeding
Mhm.
the potential growth of the students.
What is it going to take? What is it going to take for Congress, the Senate, to get that?
I think just putting more people in the Congress and to the Senate that truly understand what's going on, that truly has an ear to the people that are there. Make sure that you're keeping people connected. Right now, one of my pet peeves and one of the things that I want to go after in Congress is all this big dark money in politics. With all the big dark money in politics, politicians, not all, but some, are no longer representing the people. They're representing whatever those rich entities are, whichever that money is coming from, who's ever paying their campaign note, paying for their campaign to get going to make sure that they're reelected or getting elected. So they're more obligated to those people than they are to the communities that they came from. So we have to get that money out of politics such that our people that we elect can really represent us, represent the people. I think I will definitely be one of those people because I'm not really interested in anything that would take me away from what my goals are, which is to uplift the people of Indiana. And that goes for suburban, that goes for rural, that goes for the inner city as well.
Yeah, so you say that you bring a unique perspective to Congress because you understand firsthand how policy impacts lives of real people, not just statistics, but about human beings behind those numbers. Talk about that.
Let's talk about, for example, how minimum wage has been stagnated for how many years? A lot. Really, we are still at a $7 and something minimum wage, although most places have started hiring people at $13, $14 an hour just out of necessity. We have to make sure that our policies match the reality of what it takes to live in these United States. And the fact of the matter is, no one can live on $7.50, $7.50 an hour. That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Policies such as that will help us. Now, also, where I might set myself a little bit differently than some of the other candidates is that I'm also for universal health care. I think that everyone should have health care. Health care should not be connected to whether or not you're employed. Healthcare should be connected to the fact that you are a U.S. citizen or that you're here in the United States. Our policies have to be consistent with what the needs are because a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the mental and the physical health of the people that live here.
Mm-hmm. Ah, wow. So I know you're a champion for student loan debt. And I know I heard this morning that President Biden just released some more funds to help those students that are drowning in student loan debt. Talk about that.
Well, for one, it's just practical to relieve people of student loan debt. The people that have student loan debt are the ones that are going to be most likely to put that money back into the economy. Right now, that money is going towards interest rates and that sort of thing so that they're not able to buy homes. They're competing with these conglomerates that are buying up all the homes. They're not able to move forward. They're not able to remodel their homes and do those things. that money would go right back into the economy. It would improve the economy. It's not taking from anything for the improvement of the United States. It just releases more money into the ecosystem, into the system, such that we can move forward. People should be bound up with these student loans. Now, while wages have not increased very much at all, maybe they've sort of almost doubled in the last 40 years, which is nothing. The cost of education has went up 800%.
Mm.
So now what used to be a few $1,000s a semester to educate yourself, now it's $50,000. It's just astronomical cost to education that is no fault of anyone else but the institutions themselves. And now people are strapped with these bills that don't match what they're gonna earn.
Mm-hmm.
So they're stuck with in this weird situation where they can't move forward. They can't afford a house. Their student loan bills are as much as a mortgage payment. And that makes no sense. We need to free them up so that they can move on with their lives. Even if we did nothing else but take the interest off of student loans. Just get rid of the interest so that when they do pay down, they can actually see the decrease go down,
Mm-hmm.
see their debt decrease month after month instead of just staying the same because of the interest. It's paralyzing for a lot of people.
You are, I like to say you're every woman. You know, I love that song. And the reason I say that is because you are single. I was a single mom too. How did you manage to go to college and get your PhD? I did too. I just finished mine in 2021, 22, my PhD. So how did that work for you? I know it was a challenge.
It was a challenge. There was a time where my book bag and my diaper bag were the one and the same. So it was a book bag / diaper bag.
Mhm.
It was a challenge, but I will say this. What I found out is I had very little time to work with, so I had to be super, super focused. When my son was little, super focused. I knew he would lay down for a nap. I had 2 hours he would sleep for 2 hours. I've got 2 hours to really cram for this exam or write this paper. It seems like I was even more organized because I had so little time to work with. But we managed. Luckily, there were all sorts of little YMCA and different programs where camp was $10 a week. And I just utilized everything I could possibly utilize to make sure that he had what he needed. He was involved in everything he needed to be involved in to keep him busy. I had to utilize it. And we made it work on very little money. It was like $900 a month was the stipend I had in graduate school. And that wasn't that long ago, but we managed to pay his health insurance and managed to pay our rent and get all that stuff done with $900 a month. When I look back on it, I'm like, how did I do that? I don't know how I did that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a challenge. Daycare is a challenge in itself. Is that an issue that you want to tackle?
Absolutely. Safe and affordable. It's got to be safe. What mothers don't need to have happen is have to go to work worried about what's going on with their kids. So we want to make sure that it's safe, that they're in loving hands, and make sure it's not most of their income. The way it is now, it costs more to keep your kids in daycare. You don't make enough to even be able to afford to keep your kid in daycare.
Mhm.
So people are in this dilemma. I might as well stay home, maybe watch some kids or do something else because by the time I pay for the gas, the car, the clothes it takes to get back and forth to work in daycare, which is a major expense, what do we really have left here?
Mm.
We could get the daycare thing handled. Other countries are better at doing this than us.
Mm-hmm.
People have adequate time off, a year sometimes in some countries.
Mm-hmm.
They've got time to bond with their kids, to be home with their kids, and then they have state-funded childcare.
Mm-hmm.
They're more for family-oriented than the United States, and we, of all people, could afford to do this for our citizens of the United States. We could afford to do this. It would be helpful for everyone in the long run.
It definitely would, and that extra stress. I mean, and on especially single parents, but now it doesn't matter because the two-parent families are struggling as well.
Yeah, absolutely, they're struggling because no one, actually, the cost of living here, even in say Indiana used to be pretty reasonable. If you're making less than $60,000 a year, you and your spouse, if you're bringing home as a couple less than $60,000 a year, you're having a hard time making your ends meet. That's the bottom line. There's nothing left, especially if you have two children. There's no money left. With the cost of living, it just costs that much to get you and your kids fed, dressed, transportation, and all those things. It costs money to live. We just have to come to grips with what it really costs and adjust wages to fit those costs.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. What about the public assistance? Because to me that system's been broken forever, in my opinion. Uh, what would you do differently, or what would you like to do differently?
Some public assistance has been helpful. I know people who have used it in an appropriate way where they went to school, they've been able to make their lives better. I think there's always that trap of one generation after the next, being stuck in that sort of mindset to think that this is all that there is. And it depends on what part of public assistance that you're talking about. If it's Section 8, if it's for housing, if it's for WIC, if it's for food, it just depends. No one, having food for people and a place for people to stay benefits all of us, actually. It doesn't just benefit that person, it benefits all of us to know that that kid is clothed, fed, and educated. We're the ones that get the benefits of that.
I agree, but so what is it that can be done to help assure that it is not a generational thing? I mean, there's got to be programs that we can put in place, to get the kids when they're young thinking away from being on public assistance, if that's the correct terminology.
The thing about public assistance, you just have to have more role models that can show the children that this is not all there is. This is just, mama got stuck, your mama got stuck, but that doesn't mean you need to get stuck. There used to be in our communities people that were teachers and lawyers, and everyone was right there. So the people had role models as far as you could do this way or this way.
Yeah. So maybe that's something that, can be implemented, some programs because, it really is a mindset. Really is. It's about changing, the way you see things. I say this all the time. 9 times out of 10, your children will follow in your footsteps. That's just what it is. And if they know that, grandmama was on public assistance, mama's on, and that's what they know.
Yeah, it
So
becomes what they know. We just have to show them that there's something else. They have to show that there's other ways of getting where they need to go. We don't really lay out really, really clear paths for people,
right.
For our young people. The schools need to have programming such that when they leave high school, their feet are on the ground ready to go. And I've watched other countries do this such that, and there's even other states that when the kids graduate high school, they're already prepared to go into a career or go into college or go into a skill. We let a lot of our children in Indiana just drop through the cracks because they barely made it through high school, some of them. And there's no skill connected to them to make sure that they go to the next level.
Yeah, and that was what my job was when, at the electric company, was going into the schools, because only in Newark, and which was my territory, Newark, New Jersey, if you know anything about it, only 35% of their students graduate from high school anyway. And being that I was hiring in the construction area, I was giving them opportunities, because if you're not going to school, you do have to graduate. You do have to have a diploma, but you can come in here and make $29 an hour to start.
That's a good salary.
It is. And so basically, what I did was I was going into schools and talking about the opportunity. College is not going to be for everyone. So look at this as an alternative to going to college. But I think that, yeah, the programs like what we did should be implemented. There should be programs to prepare the young people who are not going to college, don't have a chance of going to college, but they still are going to need to sustain a family or themselves or whatever. So that's something I would think that would be important to the people that we elect.
Yes. It's not the same though for this generation as it was for us when we were coming up. There were so many manufacturing jobs when I was coming up. My dad and my mom, they grew up. They were young parents. They were teenage parents, but they managed somehow to make it work and get a job in the factories, the union factories, and they were able to raise my brother and I, and we did okay. They did okay. They wound up building a house and doing all this stuff on that factory job. Those jobs don't exist in the abundance that they did. They just don't have so many of those.
No, those days are.
Those days,
My mother worked at General Motors,
yes.
so I know.
Yeah, so we can't really compare them to what's going on now.
Mhm.
Another thing happened was a shift in some of the things that were going on in their education. One of the things that I've noticed, raising a son, is that the school curriculum sometimes change so much that it's impossible for a parent to teach their children even what they learned. So it's not like this intergenerational passing down of information. So the kids are out there just with parents that don't even know how to do their homework. I ran across that. I'm teaching college students, and my fifth grader at the time bought me his math homework. I said, Ryan, I can help you with this. Akil, I can help you with this. Because I teach college. I looked at his homework and I'm thinking, what the heck is this?
I know that's right.
I don't even know how to do it the way you guys do it. We did it totally different. I don't understand why they keep changing the curriculum such that we're not able to pass our knowledge down from one generation to the next. And that's been problematic as well. There's a lot of things that are happening as far as why our children are where they are. And we have to go back and systematically put those things back in place that they've lost, that we didn't make easier for them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're making history as in women's history as the first African American woman going for the Senate in Indiana, right?
That's right. And there was another sister that ran with me last time, Hanifa Khalik. And she and I both, we weren't able to get on the ballot last time that we ran for Senate. I was able to get, she didn't run again, but I was able to get on the ballot this time. And Hanifa is actually a good friend that I have right now. We were opponents one time, but she's one of my biggest cheerleaders as far as we've got a Black woman finally on the ballot. Now, keep in mind, there's only been 3 African-American females in the Senate since the history of the United States. Mm-hmm. And one of those was Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was Carol Moseley Braun. Mm-hmm. And then there was a sister recently appointed by the California governor when Dianne Feinstein died recently. So I will be the 4th Black woman in the history of the United States to be on the Senate. But never has a woman been on the Senate, in the U.S. Senate, from Indiana, since the history of Indiana, and definitely not a Black woman. If you add that extra layer on there. So this is a historical first in two categories, female and being of color.
And how do you feel it's going?
I think it's going really well. We just need to get the word out. One of the problems with funding is that women tend to get half the donations that men get.
Mm-hmm.
And then Black women are at the very bottom of that as far as getting donations in. Some of it is our fault, mainly because a part of it is our fault, because since we are sisters out there on the grind, we kind of hate asking for financial help because we know what that feels like. Wait a minute, we got bills to pay and this $25 needs to go here. So we're really slow on asking as well. But still, I think it's a man thing to say, hey, I'm donating, write a big check to this guy, because a man doesn't want to write another man a little check. Whereas that same man will turn around and he'll write a $5,000 check to this person. He'll turn around to a Black female and write her a $50 check and say, here you go, little lady.
Mm-hmm.
And think that that's perfectly fine. They think they've done something really great. So what winds up happening is that the Black females struggle in every area to get the funding they need to make things work. But we manage to do a lot out of a little.
Yeah, that's working in the electric and gas industry, a pretty much white male dominated industry. I know firsthand what you're saying.
Yes.
So what can we do? What can we do to change that trajectory? And that is not just with you. I mean, that's everywhere. We as women, and especially women of color, do not get the support that we need for too much of anything, really.
Right. I think we have to start looking at our politicians as an investment. And I think we need to handle it just like we handle tithing in church. Certain amount of money, a few dollars, just start putting it away and make sure you invest in your politicians, because they do have to pay to get things done. They do have to pay to buy brochures and how to get on to be known out here. They do have a lot of expenses to make things happen, and then hold that person to the fire and say, listen, you're representing us. Make sure that their money comes from us. And then that way they know who they're serving. When they're serving us, when we're investing in them, they have no choice but to serve us. Mm-hmm. So it's just an investment. So we have to look at these things from a different standpoint and look at it as, I'm investing in our politics such that this person can represent us.
I love what you're doing. I love your background. I love your focus. Mental health and mental wellness is at the forefront of everything that we do.
Absolutely.
You absolutely, you can't move forward too much of anything if your mental state isn't solid, or at least close to being solid. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And we're dealing with so much. I don't think people even realize how much trauma we went through with COVID.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We are still traumatized by that.
Yes.
Especially those of us in the inner city areas where our relatives were working in service industries. Mm-hmm. We were going to funerals, seems like every couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. We as a country, we as a group of people have to come to grips with what that was. I don't even think that's caught up with all of us, but we lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
I lost layers of my family during COVID. That's one thing. The gun violence in our cities, that has just traumatized us even more, because we're going to funerals of kids all the time, once a month, once every couple months, we're going to someone's kid's funeral. We're traumatized by that as well. And then there's other things that happen in the media and all these things that are happening, whether it's Trump or whoever, this commotion that they keep going on all the time. We're tired. We've got mental health stress. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the fact that there's still mental health issues in our communities that have more to do with clinical reasons, brain reasons, the way, schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, those are things that are going to be there. But how they are impacting us, or how they're impacting those people, can be mitigated quite a bit by less stress and more support. And that's what we have to do.
Mm, mm. Well, we are asking that our listeners support you. I already did post a very lovely picture of you on the page, the one that's on your website with your link. We will be sharing it. This broadcast is going out to several pages. But like I always say, you don't have to be in Indiana to support the sister. You don't. This is, she is our queen, and that's what we call each other, queen. She's our queen. And you can donate it 5, 10, 15, 100,000, whatever you can give. Every little bit will help put a sister, and not just a sister, but a brilliant sister who has earned her right to be there. She put in the work, she got the education, she knows the issues, she cares. She's got so much that she's bringing to the table. So I'm asking if our followers would please support Dr. Valerie McCray. And like I said, we posted the website. What's your website again?
It's ValerieMcCray.org or .com. It's ValerieMcCray.org. You can reach us there anytime, and there's Facebook, there's all LinkedIn, there's Instagram, all of those are connected right there at that website. And just type in Dr. Valerie McCray or Valerie McCray, and you'll find us somewhere, somehow. And please, we would love it if you were to push the donate button. If you've got skills or time where you want to volunteer, we need volunteers as well, because we have to get the word out there, and we've got to do the work.
Absolutely. And your office is located where?
In Indianapolis. Our mailing address is 1075 Broad Ripple Avenue in Indianapolis. But this is a statewide race, so I'm all over the state.
Okay.
And this is a federal appointment. When we win this, we win for the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm voting for people in Idaho, I'm voting for people in California, I'm voting for women in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
I'm voting for women in general, I'm voting for Black people in general. So it helps all of us. It's a federal race, but I'm going to be making sure that Indiana has what it needs as well.
Yeah, so you say that you're fighting for our human rights. Your opponent wants to take away our human rights and water down our education systems and irresponsibly address immigration issues. Talk about that.
Right now, they are just running on, right now, we're gonna have a primary in May. The guy I'm running against in May, he's another Democrat. His issues, his policies and everything are pretty close to mine. They're just Democratic values. The person, once we get past the primary, we have the general election. And the general election, I'll be running against Jim Banks. Jim Banks is pretty heavily more MAGA, Trump stuff. So those people are trying to dismantle education, trying to make sure our Black history and other history is hidden, that it's taken out of the schools. It's trying to push us backwards. And Lord knows, we all need God in our lives, but we have to be careful when we try to mix all these things together and try to, how do I say this? Some of the people that are saying, amen, bless you, Jesus, are not necessarily for our kids and the best for our kids. So we got to make sure that we can keep those things pretty separate and make sure that our kids are nourished in the way we want them to be nourished and not dictated from the outside. So I think Jim Banks runs mostly on fear tactics, and they're trying to just keep things stirred up. I want to run on what we can get done and what we can improve for people. I want to run on making this an excellent society. Make sure our schools are excellent. Make sure our air quality and our food sources are excellent. Let's run on bringing excellence back to this country.
Absolutely, I agree. Um, and so the important thing, other than supporting you, is to vote.
Absolutely. We need everybody to come out and vote on May 7th. There's, in Indiana, there's going to be early voting as well, so that's coming around pretty quickly. And there's still time to register to vote. So even if you have a felony or whatever you got, as long as you're not incarcerated right now in Indiana, you can vote. You can register to vote. So get out there and vote. There's no excuse for you not to register to vote. You have a couple weeks to do that. Please register. It's pretty easy. Go on indianavoters.gov, indianavoters.gov, or just type in Google, how do I vote in Indiana? How do I get registered to vote in Indiana? And it will take you right to that website. Get registered to vote, and please show up to vote on May 7th or do early voting and vote for Dr. Valerie McCray or Valerie McCray. The doctor's not going to be on the ballot, but just remember Valerie McCray. Vote for, Valerie McCray, and go to our website and find out how you can help.
This is great. I am so honored. Like I say, I've had friends, I'm bad with names, but my friend Erica in North Carolina, she actually ran for the Senate. She was pretty devastated when she lost, and there was another sister in North Carolina. I can't remember her name either. You might know, but I'm drawing a blank. But we don't have anybody.
Yes.
This is our time. This is your time to put your money where your mouth is. You say that we are united, we support each other. Society says that Black women can't work together. Of course, with Black women empowered, I've proven that to be a lie, because we wouldn't have almost 4 million followers across social media platforms. And we do the same thing on every platform. It's encouragement, inspiration, Christianity. That's what we do. We've been doing it for 12 years. It's not broke, so we don't have to fix it. But we need you. We need you like never before to take this serious, because Dr. Valerie says, together we can build a movement for change, one that prioritizes mental health and ensures every individual has access to resources and needed policies that help us thrive. With your help, we can win. Is that correct, Dr. Valerie?
We absolutely can win. We just gotta just lock arms and get this done. And it's not that difficult to vote. Let's vote. That's our superpower. Our superpower is voting. And we can't let anybody take that from us. And we've just got to use it like a sword and make sure we cut out what we don't want and put in what we do want. And we've got that power. We got to use it before it's taken.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great. I'm so glad that we met last night at the Obama dinner. God doesn't make any mistakes.
It sure doesn't. This has been such a blessed campaign. It's hard to describe. I wish I could tell you, just watching God work, sometimes it's been like, oh man, I was not expecting that. That is just so nice,
Well, that's the God that we serve.
Absolutely.
My grandfather was a pastor for 70 years, and I remember an old song they used to sing. He may not come when you want him, but he's always on time.
Always there on time.
And
Yes.
so the timing is everything. This is your time, Queen.
Thank
And we got to get out there and make it happen.
And I won't let you down. That's what people need to know. I will not sway and I will not let you down. We're going to do this.
Well, thank you so much. Everyone, please, please, please share the broadcast. That's how we get the word to others. Even if you only have 10 followers, it doesn't matter. Share the broadcast so we can spread the word and get this ball rolling. Dr. Valerie, thank you so much for your time today. It's a pleasure. We will be replaying this as well. A lot of people are working during the daytime, so we'll replay it at nighttime and several times to make sure that the people get this message. So I want to thank you again for being the woman that you are, a woman of integrity, honesty, and commitment to the greater good for everyone. Is right?
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Dr. King. I definitely appreciate it. This is a God. It's definitely from God, that you have me on this show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And everyone, what's today? I think what today is. Okay.
Friday the 22nd.
Yeah, I had to think of when I'm going to go live again. We'll be back next Wednesday with our inspirational post at 11 o'clock Wednesday. We come on every Wednesday. And everyone have a blessed weekend.